There are many things that Steve Ross is known for and loves to do, and that's just horsing around.
Typical!
He has an extensive broadcasting resume, which includes being on the air on virtually every Philadelphia radio and television station you can identify. But his experience with the ponies is almost as extensive. In the early 1980s, Steve served as track announcer at Philadelphia's Liberty Bell Park and then track announcer and race caller at Laurel, Maryland's Free State Raceway before assuming the position of director of marketing.
From the outside, Goldie Slip goes by and gets the lead.
From 1985 to 1988, Steve was director of advertising and promotion at Garden State Park before serving in the same capacity at Philadelphia Park, now Parks. Steve has been executive producer and co-host with Dick Girardi of Keepin' Track, a national radio program devoted to thoroughbred horse racing. From 2008 to 2015, he co-hosted PA Harness Week on NBC Sports Philly. Starting in 2005 and lasting through 2016, Steve joined Broadcast Pioneers members Jim Murray and Jackie Strauss in co-hosting the popular nostalgia program Remember When. Former Eagles general manager Jim Murray was and still is a key player in Philadelphia's Ronald McDonald House, and with his sports marketing and public relations firm, Jim Murray Limited, supported the McDonald's LPGA Championship, which Steve Ross worked on. At that time, Steve was Vice President Creative Director for Jim Murray Limited. The tournament had the distinction of holding a world's record for most money raised for charity by a single sporting event. Steve's broadcasting career includes many highlights, including moving from being the overnight jock at Wibbage to weekends at WFIL.
WFIL, Steve Ross and your $1 Million Weekends.
And to think that it all started on Drexel University's WXDT. Please welcome Steve Ross into the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame.
Good evening. I almost forgot why I was here. I thought they were going to call me up sooner or later. I mean, really. Anyway, they told me that I have 3 minutes to speak. It takes me 3 minutes to say hello. But I will do my best to do this as succinctly as possible. This is pretty neat, I got to tell you. This night is very special indeed. And you find out about it months in advance. And when you do, you start thinking about, how's it going to play out? How are you going to plan this thing? Am I going to come up here, am I going to do a speech? Am I going to do shtick? Or am I going to be serious? Whereas Janis Joplin might say, a combination of the two. So I elected to go for Janis. And those of you who got the Janis reference, you're very old. I found out about my induction in the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame at the June luncheon. And Jerry Wilkinson, he's a big mahuff, he's a guns knocker, he's a CEO, whatever he is, president, whatever. He very excitedly says, Steve, come with me. And I said, what? And he says, come with me, and he's dragging me out to a separate area. And I'm going, is he really going to hit me up for my dues today? I mean, really, my Broadcast Pioneers dues are overdue? He takes me in a separate room, and he says, Steve, what are you doing November 16th? And I said, well, it's 2 days after my birthday, so I'll probably still be hungover. Why do you ask? And he said, because that's the day you're going to be inducted in the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame. To which I said, no shit. And I mean, it's honest. I mean, excuse me. That's exactly what I said. And I was really taken aback. And I said to myself, what the immediate thought that came into my mind was, I know that there is a Broadcast Pioneers coonskin cap in my future. But that's an old wives' tale. Don't you guys remember Ralph Cramden, Ed Norton, the Honeymooners, the Raccoon Lodge? Ooh, remember that? So I always thought Broadcast Pioneers should have coonskin caps. But I guess not. How do you compress almost a half century in this industry in 3 minutes? It's impossible. Can't be done. But I will say this. It's been a heck of a ride from my first utterance into a microphone at WXDT, which is now Drexel University. But back then, when cavemen were writing on cave walls with rocks, it was called Drexel Institute of Technology. The difference is the amount of tuition. And it was pretty amazing. My mentor, talking about WFIL boss jocks, was Long John Wade. And Long John Wade had a broadcasting school. Many of you will know the American Academy of Broadcasting. I wasn't in that. I met Long John Wade backstage at a concert that featured the Soul Survivors and the Young Rascals. And friends of mine, good friends of mine, were the road managers of the Soul Survivors, so I got credentials, and I went backstage, to roam around. It was at the Spectrum in 1969, and it was a long time ago. And I was back there just, chewing the fat with Long John, and he said, you got a pretty good voice. Did you ever consider radio? And I said, no, not really. And I talked like that back then, but he heard something. So anyway, what happened was, he said, why don't you come up to the round building on City Line Avenue on the 4th floor and just sit in and watch what goes on. And he planted the seed, and I was had. And it was great. And just to show you how funny this business is, I got a lot in a big hurry. In fact, Long John Wade and I worked at WIBG Wibbage, when Wibbage was a real major radio station. And I'll never forget this. I was sitting on the couch at 117 Ridge Pike in Lafayette Hill, where WIBG was, and Long John was sitting there, and I said, Long John, how about this? You got me in the business 10 minutes ago, and now we're working at the same station together at the same time. So, I'm young and dumb and full of myself, and I'll never forget his reaction. He looked at me with this stern look on his face, and he said to me, let me give you a piece of advice, my friend. He said, you have to be sitting in front of a microphone for a minimum of 10 years before anything you say into it is worth a damn coming out of it. And at that time, I'm going like, yeah, right. I'm saying we're at the same station, whatever else, this and that. And the bottom line was, I had to learn the lesson for myself that he was absolutely right. And I never forgot that. It was about the sagest piece of advice I had ever gotten in the business. And I am just thrilled and amazingly humbled by this great honor. I have my family over there. I have some amazing people. Jimmy Murray, the best friend a human being could ever have. My wife Karen, who is my rock. My sister and brother-in-law Don and Lynn are here. My daughter Alexis and her fiance Robbie, they got engaged just last year. No, I'm sorry, last week. Time really flew right on by. And you know what they say? That the father of a daughter, whoever is going to marry their daughter is never good enough for her. This kid's good enough for her. I have a regret tonight, though. For those of you that are familiar with our radio show, Remember When, Saturday nights on CBS Radio, as many of you know and are great fans of, my mother, who we affectionately refer to as Miss Mildred, was a staple on the show, and she used to tell her great jokes that were not old lady jokes, but jokes you could tell around the office water cooler. And she developed a great fan club and whatever. Mom would be the first person to be here. She would be beaming, as us Jews are fond of saying. She'd be kvelling because her son was up here getting this award. But Mom is in a long-term care facility, and hopefully this is being videotaped, and I will show this to her, and she will be thrilled appropriately. So I will just say this. in finishing. Before I came here, I looked at the list of honorees, of people who were inducted into this Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame. Amazing icons, a virtual who's who of everyone that I watched and listened to throughout my whole life. And now, I am among them. I'm part of their ranks. And that is humbling, and I'm honored, and I can't tell you how much I enjoy this. This night is special to me. I'll never forget it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.